What's up, everybody? How we doing? Matt Modi here with OddsJam. Let's bet some NBA player props. So pulled up OddsJam, pulled up the positive expected value page. I think I have 4 or 5 player props that I have targeted from the positive EV page that I really like. So let's get right into it. Play number 1 that we're going to go ahead and lock in here is James Harden over 36.5 points, rebounds, assists. This is obviously in the Sixers versus Blazers game, as it says right here under event. And I know that this is the positive EV play because it is bolded and it has the blue little rectangle around it. This is the sign saying this is the bet that has positive expected value. Now, what does that mean? What does the positive EV mean? It's all kind of derived from these no vig odds. This number that you see here under like the no vig odds column, right? We see it on every single positive EV play as you scroll down. So the way this works and why it's such a profitable betting system and betting model is because if you look at kind of the screen that you see here, right? We see odds range from -115 all the way up to -148. It's a pretty wide range of odds for the same exact play. He's either going to go over or he's going to go under. There's no difference in anything else except for the literal odds themselves, which are what, like 33 cents apart. So with this thought in mind that there's a huge gap between where sportsbooks price odds, some of them are consistently better than others at pricing odds, right? Like if you're looking at this, one of these sportsbooks, sorry, I'm pointing at the screen, no, that's not helpful at all. One of these sportsbooks, the -115 versus the -148, one of them is going to be right, one of them is going to be wrong. They both can't be that far apart and accurately reflect the market that is this James Harden PRA bet, right? It doesn't make sense. They can't be that far apart and both be correct. So with that thought in mind, like I said, some are better than others at pricing odds. So what OddsJam did, and I find this fascinating, is they back tested thousands and thousands of previous betting opportunities, all using all that data to determine what sportsbooks are consistently the best, consistently the most accurate at pricing odds. So instead of just anecdotally being like, you know what, I think that these 4, whatever, are the sharpest. No, they use data over a large sample size to have the math, the data, the facts tell them historically these sportsbooks are the best. So they collected all that data. They determined, okay, let's pretend that these 5 are the best at pricing odds. Then they removed the VIG from those 5 sportsbooks using a weighted average, the VIG being just the juice that sportsbooks price odds. You see how, like, for the Bet365 line, it's -115 on the over, it's -115 on the under. No matter what side you're betting, you're accepting 15 cents of juice on each side. That's the VIG. That's how sportsbooks make money. They charge this VIG. So removing that gives you an accurate reflection of what a sportsbook views a market. Using the same example, the -115 each way, this is Bet365 telling you that they think this is a 50-50 market. They're charging the same exact amount of juice on each side, which is them telling you they don't know which side is favored. So the true line of this was basically 50-50 each way, which is +100. So removing the VIG just gives you an accurate representation of what a sportsbook charges the market. So these 5, again, I'm not saying that's the case, just for example, 5 sportsbooks, remove the VIG using a weighted average. All of that feeds into these no VIG odds here. So these no VIG odds represent the weighted average from these sharp sportsbooks with the VIG removed. These no VIG odds can be viewed as the true line, the true representation of what a market should be priced at. So if we're getting more favorable odds, and that just means higher payout, so more favorable for us as a sports bettor, it's going to be a profitable bet. And that's exactly what we have in this James Harden one, along with every other play on the positive EV page. No VIG odds price it at -117. We're getting it at -115. That's profitable. Now, that's not me saying that every single bet I'm going to place, like I skipped this Killian Hayes one, I skipped a couple other ones. There are certain things that you want to look out for when you're placing a bet, and I can use this next example to kind of show you the things we look out for. And I did it for the James Harden play as well, but just to move on here. Next play, Nikola Vucevic under 11.5 rebounds. Again, the event Bulls Pistons. It's bolded. It's got the blue rectangle around it saying, hey, bet me. I am a profitable bet. Take me. The no VIG odds, the OddsJam perfect line prices this at about +110. A little +110.5 essentially. So the stuff that you want to look out for for placing a bet. And now I do this before recording, so I know that these are good going into it. You want to compare the odds of the bet you are placing, compare them to the rest of the sports books and where they price their odds at. So we are betting Vooch under 11.5 plus 112 at FanDuel. So let's compare these plus 112 odds to every other book. Now, right off the bat, you can ignore these three: Monkey Knife Fight, Underdog, and Prize Picks. They're DFS companies. They have the same implied odds for every single play. So you can ignore the minus 137. But every other book, literally every other book, again, ignore these last two. Pinnacle, which is the sharpest sportsbook in the world. That's what you, the sportsbook that you want to look at first is Pinnacle. They're the sharpest one. You want to give them the heaviest weight. Price this at minus 108, 20 cents better than the FanDuel one. Bet Online prices this at minus 104, about 16 cents better than the FanDuel one. And then DraftKings is another pretty good one at minus 110. And then just the rest of the markets, minus 110, minus 113, minus 110. Every other sportsbook, legitimately every single sportsbook, has this at the best, at closest to FanDuel, at minus 104, 16 cents better. So the goal here is, like I said, you want to compare the odds of the bet you're placing, and you want to make sure that you're betting on an outlier. The reason why, just think about it from a logical scenario. And think about it not necessarily in terms of sports betting, but just in pricing in general. Literally every other sportsbook, that prices this play has Nikola Vucevic under 11.5 rebounds as the significantly more expensive option. They're charging you significantly more for the same exact play. FanDuel is not charging you as much. So what is the most likely scenario here? That every single sportsbook that has this more expensive is incorrect, or that FanDuel just has a mispriced line here? FanDuel is probably going to change the odds on this play to match the rest of the sportsbooks sooner rather than later. They're not going to want to have a line discrepancy out here like this. So you want to, when you see a play like this, you want to move quick, which is why I post these right after I'm done recording, because this is a mispriced line. This is a true discrepancy. So play number 2, Nikola Vucevic under 11.5 rebounds. Next up, we're skipping this PRA one. And the third bet for today is Zach LaVine over 4.5 assists. This is at plus 128 odds at BetRivers. So the OddsJam perfect line, the true line of this, is just below plus 127, plus 126.91. Now, to compare the odds from every other sportsbook, BetRivers is at plus 128, FanDuel's at plus 120. The rest of the sportsbooks, starting with Pinnacle, plus 112, plus 112, plus 110, plus 110, plus 108, plus 110, plus 112. Clearly an outlier compared to every other sportsbook, except for FanDuel, which in FanDuel is kind of more in the middle than it is aligned to either side. So this BetRivers one is still a really good bet. Zach LaVine over 4.5 assists. That's play number 3. And play number 4, and this is my last play for this video, is Killian Hayes over 13.5 points. So the OddsJam perfect line, or this is at minus 115 odds, over 13.5 points at minus 115 odds. OddsJam perfect line pricing this at about minus 116 essentially. And then, so for a play like this, for a point total, so we know that there are different odds specifically for the 13.5, right? There's also going to be different numbers in which sportsbooks price his point total over under, meaning not every single sportsbook is going to price his over under at 13.5. So if you view this event page in a new tab, which I have already done right here, you can see, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, you can see where every other sportsbook is pricing this play at. So we're taking the over 13.5. So we want to make sure, okay, if a sportsbook doesn't have it at 13.5, do they price it above this number at 14 or 14.5? The answer to that is yes. So every sportsbook except for, looks like Caesars, and then of course the bet we are placing, either heavily juices Killian Hayes to go over 13.5 points, like DraftKings heavily favors the over, Pinnacle heavily favors the over, or they price it higher than this number, which is another way of them telling you he's probably going to go over. So we see DFS company Underdog at 14, and then we see a couple of sportsbooks at 14.5, including Bet Online, 1 point higher at 14.5. It's a pretty big deal with numbers as low as like 13.5 to 14.5. 1 point is a pretty big deal. So this is going to be my fourth and final NBA player prop for this video. Killian Hayes over 13.5 points. And that's going to be it. So if you guys are tailing these, comment and let me know. Other than that, it would have helped me out a ton if you could like, comment, and then subscribe to the OddsJam YouTube channel. If you want to find me on the social medias, you can at my Twitter handle you see on the screen here, Jedi Modi. A little Star Wars shout out there where I post some bets and just some other nonsense as well. But for this video, that's all I got. Appreciate everybody watching and have a good one.